Hello and welcome, integrated science class. Thanks for tuning in to watch this supplemental video to our lesson that we had earlier today in mitosis, which is the process of cell division. So what I mean by cell division is that basically you start with one cell and it splits into two cells. Primarily splits into the nucleus, one nucleus becomes two nuclei. So let's go ahead and review some of the vocabulary words that we've gone over in class so far. As I already said, the nucleus. Let's go ahead and bring up a picture to make this a little bit easier to understand. The nucleus is the center. Let's use a different color. Right there, the nucleus. That's the center of the cell, which is the control. That controls the cell. Everything that happens is dictated by this nucleus. The second vocabulary word that we'll review really quick is chromosome. So this is very important and plays a huge role in mitosis. So a chromosome, drawing, there we go, looks like this, right? So we have our genetic material, which is what I just drew, and then we have our centromeres, which I have drawn in red. So we have 46 chromosomes. Another quick term is chromatid. So it's basically half of a chromosome is a chromatid. So with mitosis, we can split the process into different phases of mitosis. So we always start in what's called interphase. That is when the cell is basically just resting in its normal phase. We also have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. These are the main phases of mitosis that we'll be going over today in more detail in the next slides. The phase in which cells spend the majority of their life is called interphase, and this is while cells are basically not dividing. They're not splitting their genetic material at all. They're basically just at rest. So here's a picture of interphase. So interphase, there's an arrow, looks like this. And here's some of the characteristics of interphase. First things first, remember we talked about our chromosomes. Before it becomes chromosomes, we have what looks like that, and that's called chromatin. So chromatin will become chromosomes. Here's chromatin, is right there. The genetic material inside of the nucleus. So at interphase, here's our cell. We have our nucleus, which is right there. Can't see that very well. There's our nucleus. Inside of the nucleus, we have our chromatin. There's our chromatin. And then we also have our centromeres outside of the cell. So here are our centrosomes, Our centrosomes are outside of the cell during interphase. The first phase of mitosis, this is what actually begins officially the process of mitosis, is called prophase. So there's a picture of what prophase looks like. So what happens during prophase, right? We have our nucleus, the nuclear envelope, right? So basically the wall on the outside of the nucleus starts to disappear. Our chromatin on the inside of our nuclear envelope, or inside of our nucleus, now becomes chromosomes. So remember this picture. That is what's happening inside of the cell. And then our centrosomes that used to be up here, they're now moving. They're no longer located together at the top of the cell. They are now on either side of the nucleus. Which leads us to the next phase of mitosis, which is called metaphase. So here's a nice picture of what metaphase looks like. Metaphase. And what happens during this, from prophase to metaphase, is all of our chromosomes line up in the center. They're no longer randomly dispersed throughout the cell. They're all lined up in the center. Right, our nucleus is totally disappeared. It is no longer there. And our centrosomes are at the outside still. And then we get what's called spindle. So right here, I'm going to underline it. Right there. Spindle fibers are formed, attaching to the chromosomes. And that is the characteristics of metaphase. Also, one more vocab word, the center in which the chromosomes align are called the metaphyseal plate. Let me write that down. Metaphyseal plate. The metaphyseal plate. That is this line right here, in which the chromosomes line up. After metaphase, and we have our spindle fibers attached to our chromosomes, ready to start separating, we have what is called anaphase, the next phase that we have in mitosis. Here's a nice picture of anaphase. And what happens during anaphase, also notice the shape of the cell has formed. It's no longer like this. It's no longer like that. It becomes more oval shaped. So here's our cell. Let's draw this nice and big. We no longer, right here is the center, our metaphyseal plate. And we have our chromosomes. They're separating. So here's our chromosomes, and notice they're separating, going to either side. Here's our centrosomes on either side, and our spindle fibers are attached. So basically these chromosomes are going to either side. That's what's happening here. The key thing that separates metaphase from anaphase is that during anaphase, the chromosomes are no longer like so, and they are now two separate ones. So that's the difference. Here's metaphase, and here's anaphase. What happens after anaphase is the actual division, the splitting of the cell begins, which is called telophase. So let's bring up a picture of what telophase looks like. Here we are. Telophase. By the way, I always think of telophase as in, someone talking on a telephone. That's how I always remembered it, because now they're getting farther away from each other. So they're on the telephone, so they have to use the telephone to talk to one another. So what happens during the telophase, right? In anaphase, we had our cell shaped like this. It's no longer like that. Our cell is now shaped. That's a really bad drawing. Sorry about that. Shaped like so, right? It has two very obvious cells forming, but they're still connected. So we have our cell and then the small little connection in between. It might be starting to split. And then here's the big one. Here is very important. I'm going to put a star. This is important. Remember this. What defines telophase is now that the nuclear envelope is starting to form again. This is the most important thing. We have our centrosomes on either side, and then in the middle we have our chromosomes within our nucleus. Cytokinesis is it's a vocab term that we should know. And the reason this is important is because cytokinesis is the actual splitting of the cell. So we had, right, in telophase, our two cells forming. I won't go into too much detail. Cytokinesis is taking this and then making, boom, they're no longer splitting in the middle. They have split apart. And we now have two cells with all of the genetic DNA inside. And once this takes place, we then should have two cells that are back in interphase. So just to summarize the steps, everything of mitosis and everything that we went over today. Mitosis is the splitting of a cell, and what happens is you start at interphase, then you have prophase, which we'll call that step 2, I guess, interphase, anaphase, telophase, and then cytokinesis takes us from phase 5 back into phase 1, which is interphase. I hope this helped. I hope it was a good review to go back over what we went over during our lesson. And I will see you guys on Monday.